It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Wednesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we're talking all about Renee Good, the 37-year-old activist who was shot and killed by ICE last week, tragically. And we'll talk about the circumstances of the shooting. We'll talk about the aftermath, the whole situation. And I know this news is a little bit late here. It happened, I think, over a week ago at this point. I don't know the exact day. It's been a minute, but I didn't get a chance to cover it. I have to tell you, it is really striking that there was apparently a divide about this on the far right. And it seems that the more race-conscious, immigration restrictionist far-right people knew that this is not a tragedy, this is probably a good thing. And then it seems that the Israel-critical, Jewish-critical elements on the far right, for whatever reason, said this is a horrible tragedy. And they're coming out against ICE. And I saw some ridiculous cope about this. I saw some people say that ICE is trained by the Israeli Defense Forces. So this is Trump sicking the IDF on white people, on white women. Wow, that's a stretch. That's a new one. And I'm really shocked by that, but it's a little bit alarming. It shows, I think, and I've been saying it all week, and I said it on Telegram around New Year's, it shows the extent to which this side of the far right has been captured by the far left. And we'll talk all about that tonight. Nobody on our side should be mourning this person. Once you know who she is and what she's about and everything, and yes, actually all of that matters. I see a lot of people hand-waving that away and saying, it doesn't matter what side she's on. She's a human being. Don't get me wrong. I wish we lived in a world where nobody was dying and nobody had to die and we weren't engaged in this conflict. But the fact of the matter is, as we all know, we are. We do live in a world where we are engaged in a political struggle. We are engaged in a war, actually. And the stakes could not be higher. This is about our civilization. This is about our ancestors, about our posterity. Their future is at stake, whether white people exist as a race and everything that that entails, Christendom, Western civilization, all of it, it's all at stake. And of course, we have people in the country that are fighting to prevent this from happening, fighting to prevent us from preserving these things all the time. And so it absolutely matters what side of this issue you're on. We're being invaded. The people come here. They take advantage. They loot and pillage. They get caught red-handed, in this case in Minneapolis, this Somalian enclave. They get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, stealing perhaps billions of dollars of federal assistance and other money. And some people, it's their first instinct to jump in and defend those people, literally at the peril of their own life. I say, if that's the game you want to play, good riddance. So we'll talk about that tonight. We'll get into all of it. Before we do, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know what you think about the show. Check out our merch store, Fuentes.store, 10% off because it's our first week back in 2026. Fuentes.store. Get your hats, shirts. We have all kinds of new stuff. Check it out. Subscribe at AmericaFirst.plus. $15 a month gets you every piece of content I've ever made over the past 10 years. Every interview, debate, speech, show, gaming stream. It's all there. And You get an MP3 format as well if you like podcasts, your low data. I don't know why people would prefer that, but some people do. $100 a month, you get into the group chat with me. Okay. With that out of the way, one other thing I do just want to briefly add. So, of course, over the last 48 hours, we have been watching very closely what is happening in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And last night, I covered this extensively. So if you want my full take on it, check out last night's show. The whole show, I talked about the present crisis in Iran, the protests, the prospect of U.S. intervention or U.S.-backed regime change. We went into all the details and analyzed it. And today, I was watching this all day. It looked very likely that we were going to, and by we, I mean the United States, was going to intervene militarily in Iran. And I follow some of these newswire channels on Telegram and on Twitter, and maybe some of you do too. And if you are, all day they're talking about Iran has closed its airspace. The European and Arab countries are stopping all flights into Iran, into Israel. The United States actually made some moves to evacuate the Al Udeid military base in Qatar, anticipating a retaliatory attack from Iran. There were some rumors about U.S. and Israeli fighter jets over Iraq, over Syria, all this talk about an imminent U.S. strike, and it didn't happen. It did not happen yet at the time of recording this. It's almost 10 o'clock Central Time. And I don't think it will happen anytime soon. Last night, we went into it in great detail, and I told you, given the force package in the region right now, it seems unlikely that anything military or kinetic is going to happen this week. And I told you last night, the reason I believe that is because, let's say the United States launches a missile strike, an airstrike on Iran. Immediately, Iran is going to retaliate with a missile strike of their own. And they're going to go after everybody. Israel, they're going to attack U.S. military bases in Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Qatar. Everything is fair game after that. We only have 6 ships in the Middle East right now. We have 12 in the Caribbean. And so I said last night, we just don't have enough assets in the region to carry this out. I said, so expect that it's either going to come next week or the United States is going to go in with some economic measures like these tariffs that were announced on Monday, or a cyber attack or some other form of intervention, and that will sow the seeds of chaos. It will degrade Iran's ability to suppress protests, and that will lead into some sort of future provocation, future intervention in a matter of weeks, months. But I think the timeline, and I feel confident saying this, I think the timeline is going to be sometime before April that we are going back into Iran. And the reason I say that is because the midterms are coming up. Netanyahu knows that. Trump knows that. They don't want a messy war right before the election. So I think they're going to try to do it early in the year, first quarter of the year for sure. I still think we're on high alert. I think it's absolutely coming. And it's funny, I saw today Jimmy Dore and some other people too, they put out a tweet saying that if Charlie Kirk were alive today, he would be opposing the strikes. So people are calling this some great big coincidence. I saw some people saying this. They said during the last U.S.-Iran war in June of 2025, they said Charlie Kirk was against regime change. And if he were alive now, he would be against regime change too. And this is a lie. This is an absolute lie. This is wish casting. This is ideology-induced delusion. You want to know why? Because we have the record from last year. And a lot of people are pointing to a handful of tweets that Charlie Kirk made in the buildup to the war in June of 2025, but not the tweets that he posted after the war. Because Shortly after the U.S. bombed Iran and then Trump forced a ceasefire, Charlie Kirk got on Twitter to defend the strike and to defend Trump's insinuation that we might force a regime change, and defended the position. Charlie Kirk went on Twitter and said, "There's a huge difference between a top-down regime change and a bottom-up revolution." He said, "I support a bottom-up revolution." And then a month later, when the Epstein files were buried by the DOJ, Charlie Kirk came out and said, "I'm done asking questions. I trust Trump to get to the bottom of it." And people say, well, if he were alive now, he would be a vocal opponent of the war. Let me tell you why that is not true. Charlie Kirk, obviously, God rest his soul, but he is a subject of intense debate. That's not my fault. Other people keep dragging him into it. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost, and above all else, a Republican surrogate for the GOP and for Donald Trump. And if you know anything about Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, what they are very good at and what they have always done is defend the GOP. Get people to vote for the GOP. Defend President Trump. Get people to vote for President Trump. That is what they do. And so there are no other consistencies. Not on issues like abortion, not on issues like immigration, not on issues like foreign policy. They just go with whatever Trump is saying. So if Charlie Kirk were to oppose regime change in Iran, he would be publicly going against the president, really, and that's the person that he serves. And that's not going to happen. That didn't happen last year. It didn't happen with Epstein, and it wasn't about to happen with this. That is delusional, and people are just straight up lying about it. People are posting tweets that are just days older from last year than the tweet where he said, "I would support a bottom-up revolution." Okay, well, it's actually a distinction without a difference. Don't you understand that? These protests in Iran, and this is just one last thing, and then we'll move on with the show. These protests in Iran, to the extent that they are more volatile and more violent than the protests in 2022 or 2019, why do you think that is? The reason these protests are violent is because the demonstrators have guns. And where are the demonstrations happening? They're happening in Western Iran, in Kurdish majority provinces. So here's a question for you. In the midst of this popular uprising of the people, who's giving these people guns? Who's arming the Kurds? Oh, that sounds very familiar. Well, who is arming the Kurds in Syria? Who always has armed the Kurds against whichever dictator they want to topple? Oh, yeah, Israel and the CIA. So all these people are talking about these deadly clashes. Of course, it's being embellished. It's atrocity propaganda, like everything. But to the extent that these clashes are more violent, it's because the demonstrators are armed, and that sort of suggests that they have been armed. Arms have been provided to them by a Western intelligence agency, by a Western military, by Israel and the United States for this purpose, to topple the government. And it's called the Color Revolution. It's called the Arab Spring. This is what they do every time. The CIA goes in, they give everybody guns, they plant the seeds of dissent, they coordinate it, they organize it. Starlink is overhead, giving everybody internet access, and they go and attack the government, take over government buildings. Western media embellishes and amplifies it, and the headline on every major paper in the United States, the Post, the Journal, the Times, it all says, "Deadliest clashes ever in Iran. Popular uprising, pro-democracy. Liberal reforms, anti-regime." And that's when the government, which again planted those seeds to begin with, says, well, we are intervening. It is our right to protect. Under the United Nations, it's our right to protect the people to intervene. And this is how they do it. This is how they did it in Syria. This is how they did it in Libya. This is how they operate. And so last year, Donald Trump said this. He said, if the people overthrow the government, we'll support them. And Charlie Kirk said, absolutely, Mr. President. There's a big difference between a top-down regime change and a bottom-up revolution. No, there isn't. They're exactly the same thing. They're effectively the same thing. And I see there are anti-regime Iranians that are aware of Israeli CIA involvement, and they say, it doesn't matter. This is a popular uprising. Even still, it serves the interests of Israel and the United States. So whether it's even organic or not organic, it still serves the interests of the regime. It still beckons for Western intervention to achieve the result that they desired a long time ago. So, and we talked about this all last night, but I saw this from Jimmy Dore. He's taking the Candace Owens Kool-Aid. He invited me on his show, canceled the day of, said, I got to do my research on you. Then he's talking to Loopy. Then he's talking to Fruit Loops, Candace Owens, who's totally insane. Didn't need a background check for her. Didn't need a fact check. Didn't need to do his due diligence for her. And now he's just, I guess, uncritically pumping out this garbage. Did you see the latest Candace Owens theory? I saw, and I promise I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but seriously. Today, she's talking about remote viewing, which for those that don't know, her latest theory is that Charlie Kirk is using ancient Sumerian technology, Sumer, the ancient Fertile Crescent civilization from the dawn of history. She says that the CIA, through Project Looking Glass, acquired ancient Sumerian technology, which allows them to see the future. And the CIA has been tracking Charlie Kirk since his childhood because they identified him early on as a gifted child. So they have been handling him and grooming him since he was a little boy. And the reason that Charlie Kirk knew that he was going to die is because he saw the future using this ancient technology. That's where we are now. So very early on, we had a lot of leads that had not been fully investigated. There was talk about a donation from Israel. There was talk about a meeting with Bill Ackman. People were speculating about lost security camera footage from behind. There were at least some somewhat credible leads, some unanswered questions. And then it very quickly moved into targeted energy weapons, trap doors, body doubles, a secret beekeeper society. And then it was the Egyptian planes. Then this guy. Now we're just full on into clockwork elves, transdimensional beings, demons. It's totally insane. I don't know how anybody's still with that. And I feel very vindicated because I was very early on and very forceful, and I took a lot of flack for it. Back in September, I said, this stuff is totally insane. There's no evidence for it. It is probably the most simple explanation and most logical that some hicklib with a tranny boyfriend thinks that Charlie Kirk is a Nazi transphobe, got his grandfather's gun and shot him. Totally plausible. Happens all the time. How many transgender school shootings have happened in the past 3 or 4 years? There was Audrey McHale. There was the one in Minneapolis when they shot up that church. There was that one in Texas. I don't know if that was McHale or if that was a different one. There's at least 3, 4, or 5 in just the past few years. And that seems to be where it's coming from. So the idea that some gooner hicklib dating a tranny decided today's the day that we shut the transphobes' mouths, gets up on some perch accessible to any pedestrian, takes a shot. I mean, to me, that makes a lot more sense than this convoluted, what's even the theory at this point? We're just going from one thing to the next. If one theory doesn't work out, we just make up one that's more ridiculous. If that theory doesn't work out, well, that's also part of the conspiracy. They are trying to trick us. It's much bigger than we thought. The conspiracy just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And now the conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk is about the space-time continuum itself. Like, think about how small it started. The conspiracy started out with like someone was stealing money at Turning Point and they didn't want Charlie to find out. Someone was embezzling $1 million, so they killed him. So it was like a Turning Point conspiracy. Then it turned into, well, Israel killed him because he was about to turn against Israel. Then it turned into, well, Israel, France, Egypt, and the United States killed him because he was going to reveal something that would change international affairs. Now, he was an indigo child. He was being groomed from birth by men in black hats, by these extraterrestrial beings, because he was going to break the space-time continuum. Reality broke. The Mandela effect happened. One universe combined with another in the multiverse when Charlie, and it's like, you know, at what point do you get off the conspiracy train and just say, you know what, some tranny killed him? Like, they're crazy, they hate us, it's totally plausible. So anyway, I saw that today and I'm like, I read the caption for the clip and then I watched the clip and I was like, wow, I can't believe this is real. But I guess I should. How quickly you go from I was told in a dream, my witness is in purgatory. Your Honor, I call to the stand Charlie Kirk. Order in the court, Counselor, what do you mean you call? He's dead, Your Honor. He's in purgatory. He testified in my dream. And then like the court erupts. I'll allow it. Objection, Your Honor. You can't call to the stand a witness from purgatory. Overruled. I'll allow it. And then she gets on the stand. I had my dream last night while we were at Israel and come on, guys. Anti-Semitism used to be smart. We used to be the smart ones. Don't you miss that? It used to be an elite club. Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, Mel Gibson, Richard Wagner, Hitler. And now it's Candace Owens. It's like people with face tattoos. It's like people that believe, that are into all this like alternative medicine stuff. You know, people that put their phone in like an EMF bag because they're worried about like radioactivity or something. And it's like, brother, we gotta retreat from that whole deal. Like, we just need to carve out our own space. Refugees in our own movement here now. Anyway, so my witness is in purgatory. Now that's a new one. My witness isn't. And watch them say I'm not Catholic for saying that. I don't, I believe in purgatory. I don't believe that people intervene in global politics from purgatory, making appearances like that. But who knows? I mean, when the space-time continuum is at stake, Candace is an alien, Charlie's a time traveler. I guess anything is fair game. But we're going to move on. We're going to get into our news here. That's a pretty good bit. I'm proud of myself for that one. The courtroom blows up. Objection. That's funny. I'm proud of myself for that bit. All right, but we got to move on. We do have to move on. We got to get into our featured story tonight, which is all about Renee Good. And look, we have all seen the video. I'm not going to retell the whole story. I'm sure you guys know at this point. This 37-year-old woman named Renee Good was at an ICE protest, protesting against ICE, that is, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There was a recent deployment of hundreds, thousands of ICE and National Guard. They're deployed by the Department of Homeland Security, specifically to get to the bottom of this Somalian fraud scandal, which was uncovered by Nick Shirley. So this is the precipitating event. Somalian fraud is exposed, and we will get into what is happening there because that is very much a part of this story. And you cannot start in the middle. You have to start in the beginning. So this massive fraud is uncovered. DHS sends in ICE and National Guard to investigate and get to the bottom of whether these businesses are actually legitimate. These businesses that are receiving millions, sometimes billions of dollars altogether, are they legitimate businesses or is this some kind of fraud operation to steal money from the taxpayer. And so ICE, National Guard descend on the city. And like everywhere so far, there are these massive protests. And I've seen them here in Chicago and in Los Angeles famously and elsewhere. Every one of these major Democrat cities where ICE is deployed, they encounter resistance from demonstrators. And this goes above and beyond protests. It's not even really fair to call these protests. This is harassment. They are impeding the actual duties of law enforcement. And in some cases, I think it's fair to call this a riot. There was a major ICE deployment in Chicago. It was called Midway Blitz. And ICE was all over the city, in the Hispanic neighborhoods, in Little Village and Pilsen. The detention facility was in Broadview. And you had demonstrators that were sitting around in their cars waiting for eyewitness accounts of ICE positions. And these people would follow ICE in their cars, honking their horn to warn illegal immigrants to get away. In some cases, they used their vehicles to block ICE, or in the worst cases, to box ICE vehicles in, surrounded by sometimes as many as 10 vehicles. Sometimes those people were armed. And so that's not a protest. That's not a First Amendment protected protest. A First Amendment protected protest is when you go into a public space, you exercise your free speech, and you call the people or the government to action. That's a protest. When you're following around federal law enforcement in your car, that's not a protest. ICE, under Homeland Security, has the legal jurisdiction to perform these duties. There are people in this country that have no legal standing to be here. They are being arrested by the federal government pursuant to the federal government's constitutional duty to protect the borders. Federal law enforcement can't operate inside the country. And so harassing them by chasing them, blowing whistles, honking horns, getting in their way, boxing them in, shooting fireworks at detention facilities, that's not a protest. That's illegal. And this is what is happening. And one of those people that was preventing ICE from doing their job was Renee Good and her lesbian wife, who were out there in Minneapolis protesting in the thick of it. And the rest is history, as you know. Renee Good was blocking a number of ICE vehicles that apparently were, some of them, stuck in the snow, and they're being surrounded by demonstrators. It looks like an ambush. ICE approaches her vehicle, says, "Get out of the way." Her lesbian wife yells to her, "Drive, baby, drive, get out of the way." And what happens next is a subject of controversy. It appears that she puts her car in reverse, backs up, puts the car in drive, and either she tries to run over an ICE agent standing in front of her car, or she tries to turn to flee. The ICE agent in front of the car shoots her a bunch of times. She dies instantly. Her car crashes somewhere else. They're calling ICE murderers. Now, with regard to the actual shooting that took place, whether it's justified or not, I would contend that all you need to understand this scenario is to think about if it were any other law enforcement scenario. Because that's what ICE is, after all. ICE is federal law enforcement. ICE is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Homeland Security. So they are like the police. Now imagine if you're driving down the street and you see a traffic stop happening on the side of the road and a police officer has pulled somebody over, police car is behind another person's car, they're writing a ticket, talking to the person, whatever. Now imagine you drove in front of that person, you drove in front of that cop, putting him in front of your car and started screaming and yelling at him, blocking his vehicle, preventing him from getting away. If you think about it in those terms, it's pretty justifiable what happened here. Either the law has weight or it doesn't. Either you're a law enforcement officer or you're not. Is ICE law enforcement? Do they have the ability to give legal orders? Do they have jurisdiction to perform their duties? Because if they do, then blocking their vehicle with your vehicle, a deadly weapon, being told to exit your car and refusing a lawful command, and then not only not parking and surrendering immediately, but putting your car in reverse and then drive to either flee or kill somebody, it really doesn't matter, actually, at that point. At that point, you forfeit your life. And this is no different than George Floyd. It's no different than any other one of these instances of police brutality. How do you not end up in this situation? You don't block a law enforcement vehicle. You can stand on the sidewalk and protest. If she was standing on the sidewalk, raising a sign up and down, yelling at the cops, and they walked up and shot her in the face, I would be against that. But that's not what happened, and that's not where it happened. She was blocking a law enforcement vehicle intentionally with her vehicle. That's not a protest. She's given a lawful command, refuses, and it really doesn't matter whether she intended to kill this guy or even hit him, or whether she intended to flee. At that point, that is the officer's discretion what to do. And law enforcement are human beings. What has been happening to ICE over the past 13 months, 12, 13 months since Trump got into office is that they are being targeted. They are being shot at. Their facilities are being bombed. They are being ambushed in many different cities. And when they try to arrest people, sometimes they're dragged behind a car. They're hit with the car. It has happened. It did happen to this ICE officer. And so you don't want to get mag dumped in the face? Hey, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. You would have no problems if you were at home with your kids. People want to talk about her boy, her son. Well, you know what? She should have been home with her son and her dog. People say, what about her dog? What about her poor son? I feel for the son. She should have been home with the son. What are you doing out in the middle of the street? You're not G.I. Jane. You're not a soldier. What do you think this is? Anyhow, you think this is a free-for-all? She should have been home. Then she would have had no problems. But that's getting to the heart of the matter. This is lawlessness. These people think it's a game. That's fundamentally what is going on here. And that's why I say it's important to start at the beginning of the story. So what's going on in Minneapolis? What has been happening for years, this is not actually a recent phenomenon, for years. What has been happening is that people from Africa are being resettled in Minnesota. Why? Because Minnesota is one of our best states in the country. Best healthcare, great economy, great universities. And so people take a look at one of the most well-run states with the highest human development index, and they say, we should take all these people from a broken criminal nation that barely even exists. It's a completely dysfunctional shithole filled with pirates and terrorists and gangsters and clans warring all the time. Let's take a bunch of these people and dump them off in literally one of the most developed states in the country. They come here ostensibly out of generosity. Americans are opening up their borders, maybe this is happening against their will. But under the pretext of generosity, these refugees, these people are being resettled into Minneapolis because it's a great city inside of a great state. And what do they start to do? Can't help themselves. They start stealing. And it's estimated that it could be upwards of $9 billion of fraud. This is a story from the New York Times. It says, quote, the Trump administration will send hundreds of federal agents to Minneapolis today and tomorrow to support the work of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Ms. Noem, the DHS secretary, cited a major welfare fraud scandal linked to Minnesota's Somali community as the reason for dispatching more agents to the liberal city. A vast majority of those charged since 2022 with stealing federal dollars from a pandemic-era program for feeding children and other programs were U.S. citizens by birth or naturalization. Even better. Still, Ms. Noem characterized the federal deployment as a mission to uncover the true corruption and theft that has happened during an interview on a Fox News program. She called Minneapolis the ground zero for stealing taxpayer dollars and protecting criminals. Ms. Noem said that some nonprofits were being investigated for their funding sources and claimed they had trained protesters in impeding law enforcement operations and weaponizing vehicles against ICE agents without offering evidence. I love when these eating journalists at the New York Times, they throw that little thing in there at the end without any evidence. The evidence is everywhere. Isn't that your job? You're a journalist. I live in Chicago. They are impeding law enforcement all the time. That's what dumbass was doing in Minneapolis. The Trump administration official said without any evidence. Without any evidence. First of all, you're the journalist. That's your job. The government makes a claim. You investigate that. Second of all, everybody knows that's what's happening. Everybody sees it all the time. It's all over everybody's community apps. It's all over social media. I mean, they're not even hiding it. Anyway, this is from Wikipedia. It says, acting U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Joe Thompson, estimated that the total fraud could be as high as $9 billion, representing more than half of all payments to the 14 high-risk Medicaid programs since 2018. So think about, this is the initiating action, okay? Think about this. You've got a state, Minnesota, and who makes up the population in Minnesota? It's Scandinavian people, Swedish people, Finnish people. I think there's a lot of Germans there too. I'm not really sure. You have a lot of Scandinavian people living in Minnesota. Because of the type of people that are living there, this is one of the best states in the country. Highest human development index, great healthcare, great universities, great public services, generous benefits. What's the big idea? We're going to take a bunch of illiterate Africans with an 80 IQ from Somalia and drop them off here. And for those that don't know, Somalia is not even a country. The central government in Somalia doesn't even have control over all of the territory. Most of it is controlled by ISIS. There's at least 3 breakaway states inside of its territory. It's run by clans. It's not even really a state. It's not even really a real country. So you're taking the worst of the worst. It's not even like you're going to, I don't know, a more functional African country to the extent that that exists. You're going to one of the least functional African countries. You're taking these, and they're Muslim too. They're not even Christian. So you take these Muslim pirates, these Muslim clan tribal warlords from the worst country in Africa and drop them off in the best run, whitest state in America, and they form an enclave. They do not assimilate at all. They form their own enclave, and they form their own institutions. They speak the Somali language. They practice Islam. They don't change the way they dress, the way they act. And the people that come here and their descendants are stealing from the government. We bring them here out of charity. We're going to help them. We feel sorry for them. We feel guilty. Why is our country so rich and their country is so poor and violent? Why do we have it so good and they have it so bad? So we embrace them. There's no benefit. Why would we do it? There's no benefit to bringing these people in for us. This is pure charity. This is pure charity that only our country is dumb enough to do. No other country is doing this. No other type of country is doing this. So ostensibly, again, nominally, we are bringing these people in because we're altruistic. We feel guilty. We want to extend an open arm. America's this great country and we're a moral nation, so we bring them in. What do these people start to do immediately? They start stealing. They do not assimilate. They do not adopt the local customs, language, religion, culture at all. And they don't respect it either. They don't like us. They don't get along with us. They have disdain for us. You see this from their representative, Ilhan Omar. She could barely contain her contempt for white people, white Americans. There's no gratitude, no appreciation, no deference. And they're stealing on top of it. They're looting the public dole, setting up these fake businesses. I imagine with their accomplices in the Democratic Party that are helping them do this. You have to have it. You'd have to have somebody who's in on the take in the Democratic machine that is benefiting from this, skimming off the top to the tune of billions of dollars. This is billions of dollars. We bring you here. It's a gift to live in our peaceful, rich country. We're giving you public assistance on top of it. You're just stealing it. So think about that. You work as a white person. Your ancestors fought in the wars. Your ancestors built the railroads. Your ancestors dug the tunnels, built the skyscrapers. You did everything right. You pay your taxes. You go to work. You become a homeowner. You're a law-abiding citizen. You do everything you're supposed to do. Every year, the government is taking a chunk out of you, a quarter, a third, whatever it is. And how much of that money is going to these criminal foreigners that do not belong here at all? And many of them have no legal standing even to be here. And they're just stealing it for their own enrichment and sending it to Africa, sending it to their people in Africa that hate us even more. This is what is uncovered in Minnesota, the whitest state with the blackest blacks, the most functional state with the most dysfunctional blacks. They come here, they hate us, they have no gratitude, and what do they start doing? Stealing everything that isn't bolted to the ground. And this is uncovered by some journalist, Nick Shirley, some 23-year-old YouTuber, who just bothers to knock on the door of one of these daycare centers and see if it's a real business. In response to this, the Trump government deploys all these ICE law enforcement to get to the bottom of it. This is really where our story of Renee Good begins. Imagine you're seeing this, and by the way, she's not even from there. She's from Colorado Springs. She moves to Missouri. She moves to Minnesota last year. She sees this happening in her neighborhood. There is an enclave of complete foreigners, complete aliens, stealing from you, stealing from your state, your community. What's her first instinct? She literally is going to throw herself in front of law enforcement to prevent them from investigating and apprehending the culprits. Who does that? What kind of person does that? I'll tell you. A civilizational enemy. That's an enemy of our civilization. That's not somebody in the middle that doesn't know the facts. That's not somebody that understands there's fraud, but also is wary of some of ICE's more aggressive tactics. This is a civilizational enemy. This is someone that is so far left and so fucked up. If these people had it their way, our country wouldn't exist. What even is that? You see this fraud occurring, your first thought is, I have to go and stop the police from investigating? I have to use my car to block the police from making arrests? This is a person that is your enemy. She is the enemy of your children. She is the enemy of your ancestors. Okay? And we don't actually even need to understand how she got that way. We don't need to empathize with her feelings because there's no debating with a person like that. We all know how people are. This is a 37-year-old woman. She's a lesbian. She's a poet. She has a gay pride flag hanging outside her house. You think you're going to debate with one of these people and win them over? Hey, I know you're blocking ICE with your car to prevent them from investigating this fraud, but do you want to debate with Charlie Kirk? Do you want to go on Jubilee 20 versus 1? You can't reason with these people. I don't care how she got the way she is, and I actually don't think it's worth the effort to try to convince her otherwise. People like this are our political enemy, and we have to defeat them. I said it when Charlie Kirk got shot. When Charlie Kirk got shot and people like this were celebrating, and they were, it was exactly that type of person. They saw an innocent 31-year-old father of two get shot in the neck for no reason. Their first thought was to say, let's go, this is awesome. I said, there's no reasoning with people like this. They have to lose. They have to be defeated. We have to win. There's no alternative. There's no substitute. There's no compromise. There's no debate. There's no resolution. People that do these types of things that don't get it, I'm not interested how they got so fucked up. I don't think it's worth the effort to convince them otherwise. I want to defeat these people. I want to beat these people. And what does that mean? It means that we need our people to win the elections. We need to enforce our will through the law. If they try to prevent it through illegal means, put them in jail. These people are better off in jail. Ask yourself this: if this woman and every other person like her, if we woke up tomorrow and they were all in prison for the next 5 years, would that be good or bad for our country? Because I think that would be the best thing that could happen to us. I don't even care what color they are. If you could take every one of the gangbangers, every one of the Somalis, you take every one of these white female liberals, Jewish communists, and you could put them in jail for 5 years and let the government do what it needs to do, mass deportations, industrial policy, get the corruption out, whatever, we would be better off for it. And she resisted. She got shot in the face. Too bad, so sad. Tragedy for who exactly? This is a little bit about the victim. This is from the New York Times. I'll read this to you. It says, quote, in her final moments, Renee Good was in the driver's seat of her maroon Honda Pilot wearing a light blue flannel over a red hoodie, speaking to an immigration agent who was recording her on his phone. That's fine, dude. I'm not mad, she said as the agent circled her car. Miss Good and her wife Becca prodded him. You want to come at us? Moments later, she was shot dead by an ICE agent on Wednesday morning. The agent was near the front of her car and fired his gun after she drove toward him and then turned to the right on a snowy Minneapolis street. When she was killed, Miss Good and her wife had been participating in a protest in response to ICE agents spotted in the neighborhood. She attended Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, where she won a prize in 2020 for a poem entitled On Learning to Dissect Fetal Pigs before graduating with an English degree in December of that year. Ms. Good moved to Kansas City, Missouri after college in October 2023, successfully changed her name to Renee Macklin Good, writing in a court petition that she wanted to share a name with her partner. In the court filing, she said that her 2 older children lived in Colorado. In Kansas City, neighbors recall the happy family of 3, the Goods and their exuberant son, now 6 years old, who lived in a small home with a gay pride flag in a quiet neighborhood on the south side of the city. One neighbor said he did not think of Miss Good as an activist. He lamented that her son, whose father died 2 years ago, was now without her as well. Oh, boo-hoo. You got to ask yourself, what is this person doing in the middle of the street? 37-year-old lesbian, gay pride flag hanging outside the house. She's a professional poet. Her husband died. The father of her children died a year ago. She's out there with the wife, LARPing as a resistance in the middle of the street, blocking ICE vehicles with her car. What are you doing, dummy? What are you doing? And look at how cocky they both are. Her and the wife, laughing at the ICE agent. Come at us. Come on, big boy. Try it. Drive, baby, drive. Yeah, do it. And then they get shot in the face. Wait, what the heck? You can't do that. And it's going back to what I said before. These are people that do not believe there are any rules here. For them, it's a big free-for-all. Refugees welcome, open borders, anybody come here. Take whatever you want, steal shit, burn shit down, ram ICE agents, ambush them, block them with your car. It's literally all a big free-for-all. And the women in particular, so bold. You could see from the look in her face, that is a woman that has never had any accountability for her actions. She's got the short hair, puffy, fat face, nose ring, crazy eyes looking in opposite directions. This is your prototypical stupid liberal that has never been told no, never been held accountable. She lives in a world where you can do anything, say anything. No one's going to lay a hand on you. No one's going to touch you. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. I'm going to block ICE in my vehicle. I hope nothing horrible happens. This is like a movie. She got shot in the face. And I think there's no better application of the phrase fuck around and find out than that. You fucked around, you found out. And I'm in favor of more people fucking around and finding out in our country. Because people need to find out. People need to find out that there is a limit to how far society can be pushed. Look at where we are after the pandemic, the forced lockdowns, mask mandate, and the forced vaccines. Look at where we are, $40 trillion in debt. These people are looting the public coffer. 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. You have a crime wave because everyone tried to abolish the police. Summer of Love, George Floyd, they literally burned down that city 5 years ago. And now we have even the slightest semblance of a restoration of order. Trump's not even doing it. They're not even deporting that many people. But you start to just impose some limits. You start to just enforce some of the laws, close the border, start looking into some of the fraud. And these people are out there blocking the ICE vehicles. You push too far. At some point, you have to meet resistance. Yes, at some point, you have to die. You know, you let in 10 million people. We try to enforce the law. We find out they're stealing. You try to investigate the stealing. These idiots are not only protesting, they're ambushing the law enforcement, boxing them in, throwing stuff at them, trying to run them over with their car. You think you should be able to run over ICE with your car? So there's literally no rules. You don't have to come into the country legally. You don't have to respect the country. You don't have to follow the law. You don't have to only take what you're legally entitled to. You don't have to follow commands by ICE. You get to exercise a mob veto over the president, DHS, and ICE all by yourself with your car. And the grand prize, if you don't like that you're being apprehended for blocking ICE, you get to drive off, run a guy over, and flee. No, sorry. You don't get to do that. You don't. And hopefully people start to look at this and realize this is what happens. Let ICE do their job. Illegals should go home. You don't want to be separated. You don't want to be sent to El Salvador. Then go home. They're literally paying you to go home. Think about it. With the, the Home app, the DHS Home or CBP Home app, they literally retooled it. If you're an illegal immigrant, you could get a $3,000 check and a plane ticket back to your country of origin if you just leave. You broke the law. Time to go home, but they're going to sit around and wait to get deported. And then when we rough them up a little bit, oh, it's the end of the world. This is the Gestapo. This is Hitler. And then you're going to have riots by their accomplices, the traitors in America, that are going to throw themselves in front of ICE. And there's no limit to what is tolerated there. You get to scream in their face, throw shit at them, block their cars, ambush them, throw bombs at them, run them over with a car. Now, here's the bigger problem, however. Unfortunately, the Trump administration is not serious about any of this. It is good, and I'm actually very surprised that the Trump administration stood behind this ICE officer. That's a very good thing. But the problem is, we need to put these radicals on notice. The Trump government needs to put them on notice, and that means overwhelming force. The problem is that ICE is going into these cities with a few hundred guys, a few thousand guys, and they are totally outnumbered. They're totally unable to carry out their duties because they are being harassed, chased, impeded. They don't have the numbers. And so they send in the National Guard on the heels, and they bring literally like 400 National Guard, which is not enough. And what you see on social media is that these radicals and rioters and psychos, they have no fear. They chase ICE, they're screaming at ICE, getting in their face, beating their chest. They're at these detention facilities. They're rioting outside their hotels in Minneapolis. It's not enough law enforcement. It's not enough, and then the radicals get emboldened. They're cowards. They don't want to die for this. They don't want to get hurt. They're going out there at these facilities in Minneapolis, Portland, Chicago, wherever, because they know there's going to be more rioters than law enforcement. They know they're not going to get arrested. They know they're not going to get the book thrown at them. And so every time you see a video of this on social media, these people get emboldened. They start to think it's a game. This is just what you do. If you're against Trump's ICE policies, you get in your car and you chase an ICE vehicle, and we all have a big laugh. We're heroes. You can't let them think they can get away with that. You can't let even one of them get away with that. You need a 100% rate of, if you fuck around with ICE, you go to jail. You try and chase them, harass them, you're getting your ass kicked, you are going to jail. But the problem is, when people see that they could get away with it, you get more of it, and you're actually provoking more of it. People love these videos on social media of this Bovino guy, the head of ICE, getting yelled at in Target. These hotels are being broken into. They're doing the noisemakers outside the hotel, and they literally think it's a game. Person gets shot and they run, they flee. You see these law enforcement vehicles fleeing. What needs to happen is Trump needs to send in an overwhelming amount of force, not 2,000, not 3,000, like 20,000. Go city by city. Send in 20,000 troops. Shut down the neighborhood. Take full control of the neighborhood. Get everybody you need to get and move on to the next. No games. People try to impede. They get thrown in jail. You want to protest? Stand on the other side of the road. These people have to be crushed. They have to be totally crushed, totally overwhelmed. They have to know that if I'm going there, the best I could do is blow my little whistle. Because if I try anything else, I'm going to jail. That's what they need to know. But the reason why it's happening this way is because the Trump administration is not serious about mass deportations at all. They're going through the motions and they're playing up the cruelty of ICE. And by cruelty, I mean they're posting edits of the deportations to music. They're taunting the left. They're taunting the illegal aliens. They send in 200 guys to arrest a few illegal immigrants. And then they post a hype edit on Twitter and maybe they beat a guy up or whatever. It looks a little bit undisciplined. And this is part of a calculated strategy to create the appearance that ICE is getting them out, that Trump is keeping his promises, it's mass deportations, without actually having to do it. And the reason why they don't want to deport millions and millions of illegals is because that would be bad for the economy, at least in the short term. You could debate the macroeconomic outlook in the long term on this. But in the short term, you remove 10 million people from the country, it's going to hit consumer spending. It's going to put upward pressure on prices because you're going to have to look for a lot more waiters and hotel workers and hospitality workers and all that kind of stuff. And so Trump's friends in Silicon Valley and Trump's friends on Wall Street, they don't want him actually to do mass deportations because you start carrying that out, it's going to hurt the macroeconomy. It's going to hurt growth. And you can't have these aggressive tariff policies, persistent inflation. You can't have all the other things you want to do and then have the effect of the mass deportations. So I'm of the mind, and I said this in 24, they really have no intention of doing the volume like that. They'll be satisfied with 300,000 to 500,000 deportations per year. And that's granted, that's a lot, but it's not really enough. It's not enough per day. We're not going to deport as many as we need to within 4 years. So they want to have their cake and eat it too. Well, we're not going to deport all that many people, but if we deport the people that we are getting rid of really hard and in a mean way, in a very mean-spirited and visible way, well, then the base will think we're getting the job done. And this is a classic overpromise, under-deliver from Trump. And here's the issue with this. That's all fine and well. And we're still deporting a lot of people. I mean, it's better than you would have under another type of administration. But what you're doing with the left is you're antagonizing them. And what is going to happen in the midterms, what's going to happen in the next few years, I think you're going to get more political violence from these people. They're going to turn out and vote in record numbers because all that's being done is you're just pissing them off and you're not getting anything for it. You're pissing these people off. You're not crushing them. You're not overwhelming them. You're not even doing the mass deportations. All you're doing is pissing them off. And the more you piss them off, the more they're going to consolidate, the more they're going to activate, the more desperate and wild they're going to get. And so I am of the belief, and I have been, Trump is not going far enough in any capacity. Trump needs to be gutting the federal government. 10% reduction in the federal workforce, not enough. You need to shut down entire departments and agencies, bro. You got to fire literally everybody and start from scratch. Start a new department and agency and eliminate the old one. Start a new department and agency with all your people and eradicate the old one. You know, it's not good enough to trim a little bit here and there. Fire a few thousand people in this department, fire a few thousand there. You need to totally reset the government. And when it comes to the deportations, don't send a couple thousand ICE. You got to send in a serious force, take over the city, and arrest everybody. Arrest everybody that is conspiring. Arrest everybody that is inciting the riots. Throw all these people in jail. Lock them up while you finish the job. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. But the Republicans never know how to use power. And so they get in power. They really have no idea how to wield it. They don't have a plan. They're not ambitious enough. They're not bold or decisive enough. And so they start getting something together. And in the meantime, all they do is get the left mad and energized, and then they lose it in the next one. This is the pattern. This is how they operate. So my message to Trump and Vance and the whole government is get it together. You got to shut this down. This is bad optics. And I don't mean, when I say bad optics, I don't mean shooting some idiot in the face. That's not bad optics. It's bad optics that you're in retreat. It's bad optics seeing an angry mob of idiot liberals chasing law enforcement as they beat an exit, as they beat a retreat, putting the car in reverse and speeding away. That's a terrible look. It should be the other way around. It should be a line of National Guard and ICE moving forward in a line, blasting them with tear gas and them in retreat and them running. And the people that trip and fall over, they should be getting picked up and thrown in the back of a truck and put in jail. That should be the image. So that's why I said in 2024, I don't actually believe that better than the alternative is always optimal. Some people say something is better than nothing. Sometimes nothing is better than something. Because when it comes to power, you win or you die. Those are the rules. So if you're playing the game, you have to win. If you don't, you're dead. If you don't even play the game, you can go and live your life and do whatever you need to do. But if you play the game and you don't really give a shit, you're dead. You know, like that's what people don't understand. And what I mean by that is Trump gets elected, and I said, look, he's not going to take it far enough. He's not going to do mass deportations. He's not going to shrink the government or reset the government with Schedule F. He's not going to do these things. And people say, yeah, well, but a little something is better than nothing. No. A little something is sometimes better, like, I don't know, like a little side of fries or like a little bit of ice cream. But if it's like a little bit of trying to kill the king, no, that doesn't work. If you try to kill the king a little bit, you're dead. You have to go all in. It's all or nothing. If you're doing like parkour, you know, these people that are like scaling a skyscraper and jumping, you can't do that a little bit. If you miss, you die. You have to fully send it. You have to go all in. If you don't go all in, you shouldn't even start. Because if you start, then you're just sealing your own fate. And that is what I fear is going to happen. I think that when all is said and done, none of this is going to be worth it. We're galvanizing the enemy. They're going to kill more people. And by that, I mean the left. And it's all for nothing. So they got to get it together and really drop the hammer on these radicals. Whatever happened to that? You elect Trump, you think you're going to get revenge and everything. Have they gone after Antifa? Charlie Kirk got shot. Have they cracked down on these left-wing radicals? ICE is getting bitched out everywhere they go. Have they cracked down on any of these people? It's time to get serious. But I don't think this administration, I don't think they have it in them. Kristi Noem, she's not the one. Corey Lewandowski, he's not the one either. These people are incompetent. And Stephen Miller doesn't even care. You know, people say we need Stephen Miller. Oh, okay. We've been waiting on Stephen Miller for a long time to do something. It's not happening. So that's my take on this whole Renee Good thing. People are debating, is it justified? Is it not justified? I say, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. You don't want to get shot in the face 100 times? Don't block ICE with your car. They tell you to get out, you get out. Better yet, don't be there in the first place. Be on the sidewalk lawfully like everybody else. The second you pull up in front of an ICE vehicle, you're potentially forfeiting your life like that. Then you refuse a lawful command, doubly so. Then you try to flee, okay, forget about it. Now it's over. And I really have a problem with these people that say that she is, that this is some kind of tragic situation. I don't think there's anything tragic about it at all. I think it's good. Honestly, I think it's good. I think it was good that George Floyd died. I think it's good that she died. She's a complete idiot. She's a typical liberal idiot. Irredeemable, unrecoverable. And people could say, well, that's not Christian. Well, that's the reality. 37-year-old lesbian who's out there with her wife blocking ice in the middle of this thing. That's about as irredeemable as it gets. That's a good day. It's one less idiot in the world, to be honest with you. People say, it doesn't matter what side you're on. Talk about obfuscation. Talk about a false equivocation. Or a false equivalency, I should say. People say, well, we were mad at the left for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Here's the difference. Charlie Kirk is an innocent person. Charlie Kirk is a Christian who was legally exercising his right to free speech, doing his thing, and he was murdered in cold blood for no reason. This is a woman who's breaking the law on behalf of criminal aliens and tried to run over a cop and got shot in the face. There's no moral equivalency, and there's no moral equivalency between the right and the left. If some left-wing idiot wants to lay down their life for their cause, let them. Some stupid idiot wants to lay down their life for these Somali criminals, let them. For these Venezuelan gangbangers, let them. And I'm disappointed at all these people bitching and moaning about it. They hate you. And this is maybe my final point, then we'll get into the super chats. It seems that many of the Israel critics on the right have been absolutely captured by the left, and there's this false sense that we're going to win them over. I arguably was we could talk about that another time. People say that happened to me. I'll tell you why people think that's the case. But I look at guys like Tucker. Tucker's with Anna Kasparian, and, there's this flirtation with the left. Let me tell you something about Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur and all these people. These are socialist, left-wing radicals. And yeah, they disavowed those that celebrated Charlie Kirk's death. But they're in favor of the transgender stuff. They're in favor of mass migration. They're in favor of all this stuff, and it's not negotiable. The idea that we're going to shake hands with these people and sit down and it's all going to be hunky-dory. It's all cool as long as you are giving up your concerns. As long as you are sounding like a leftist, the left is going to say, oh, I like what this guy is saying. But the second that you assert yourself as a right-winger, they still got a big problem with it. So there's this big naivete on the side of these guys like Tucker and others where they say, we're going to unite with the left against Israel. These left-wing people are making a lot of good points. No, they're not. These communist, socialist, climate people, these are not our friends at all. And, the evidence of that is what happened to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was debating with these people. Charlie Kirk shared a stage with these people. He would actually sit down and discuss the differences. When he died, they cheered. They laughed. They celebrated. Trump is doing all the things that we want to do. Or at least he's going through the motions of it. In the mind of liberals, Trump is doing mass deportations. They're calling it terrorism. Why do you think they're so anti-Trump? It's because of stuff like that. The left doesn't really care. Do you think the left cares about Epstein? They should have told that to Biden. They should have told that to any of their representatives. They don't really care about Epstein. You remember when Roger Stone showed up and said Bill Clinton is a rapist? And Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian lost their minds. Now they go on Piers Morgan and say, pedo protector, Trump is now you care about rape. Now you didn't care about it when it was Bill Clinton. You didn't care about it when it was your people. There was no call for the Epstein files from the left during the Biden years, was there? They don't give a shit about that stuff. The left is using that stuff to attack Trump because they don't like the other things that Trump is doing, like the mass deportations. And I'm talking strictly about these radical left-wingers. I don't even think they really believe in that stuff. And to the extent that they're critical of Trump with regard to Israel, they're not anti-Israel. They love Israel. You think George Soros is anti-Israel? He's not. He's anti-Netanyahu. He's pro-Israel. You think Max Blumenthal's anti-Israel? He might be a little bit anti-Israel, but he's very pro-Jewish. Extremely. Used to work for the SPLC. These far left people are not our friends. They are not looking out for you. They will not piss on you if you are on fire to save your life. So I see people getting deluded about that. They say, well, it doesn't matter what side you're on. It certainly matters. One side of the aisle is in favor of Christianity and preserving our civilization and law and order. And the other side is in favor of abolishing the police, opening the borders, chemical castration. So yes, right and left are meaningful and real categories. People actually believe in these things. And this is one of these idiots that did believe in that. This is some idiot that really went out on a limb in the middle of everything that's going on to defend Somali scammers and said, I'm going to jump in front of law enforcement. Nothing bad will ever happen to me because I'm a woman. She got shot. That's the wages. Break the law like that, you get shot. It happened to Ashley Babbitt. The left didn't cry for her. That's the wages. So we're going to move on. We'll take a look at our super chats. But yeah, I've never seen something that should be such a cut and dry issue. And then I see all these other people with the sympathy. I'm like, what is the sympathy here? This is the kind of person that hates you, wants you dead, wants your kids dead. They want to rape your kids. They smile with glee when they see these teachers in kindergarten and elementary school indoctrinating the youth with their radical politics. That's who we're talking about. They want you dead. They want your kids raped. And people say, well, it doesn't matter what side you're on. It certainly matters. Where's that moral conviction from our own side? My only belief is no blood guilt. It's just it's totally insane. The marriage with the left, it's got to stop. The left, seriously. Anyway, but we're going to move on. We'll take a look at these super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all of it. Let's see. I'm going to get set up. Yeah. Some people really surprised me. And, I said this on Twitter. People didn't really get it. Trump is invading Greenland. A protester gets shot. And you get all these people crying about it. It's like, I'm sorry, weren't you just posting a Hitler edit yesterday? You do know who Hitler was, right? All these knuckleheads for the past 2 years, it's just AI translated Hitler speeches. I don't know, he sounds pretty good to me. Posting the edits. Hitler fought for his people. He fought the bankers, blah, blah. All these Hitler apologists. Trump invades a neighboring country, kills a protester. All these people are crying. I don't like the government killing people. You can't just invade another country. We got to be consistent. Do you know who Hitler was? And then you realize these people are completely delusional. They know fucking nothing. They don't know anything about politics. They don't even know anything about Hitler. They don't know anything about anything. And so people see some edgy memes on Instagram, and that is the extent of their education. These dumb idiots, they got red-pilled a year ago, and the extent of their political education is doom scrolling on Instagram, liking these AI-translated Hitler speech edits. They think Hitler was like Ron Paul. There's this whole, of course, some of the World War II narrative is, as we know, exaggerated or fake. They have their own fake World War II narrative where Hitler saved his country and then he was going to liberate the Christians from Jewish communism because he loved Slavic people. He was going to fight the Soviets to free his beloved. He loved Slavic people. He was going to save them from Jewish communism. And they would hold parade like, no, sorry, that's actually not what Hitler was. So in their mind, Hitler is literally a Ron Paul-esque figure. Hitler was like a center-left economic populist who wanted to take over the government to leave everybody alone. Hey, man, I just want to get Jewish banking out of my country and leave me alone. They say that Hitler was nice to Jesse Owens. He wanted to build an empire based on a racial hierarchy, but people go, oh, but America was racist too. This is literally like Soviet propaganda. This is literally just whataboutism. He wanted to take over half of Europe and settle it with racially superior Aryans and enslave the inferior races. He wanted like a racial empire. And these people think that, no, he was like a wholesome Chungus nationalist who wasn't racist and so misunderstood. It's crazy. And you go, what? So somebody is on the wrong page here. I don't think we're all on the same page about this. Because we're talking about like a progressive right-wing regime, like building an empire. We're talking about strength and excellence. And, you know, we're kind of getting into some of these themes. And these people are like, what the fuck? I think that we should stop paying our taxes. And I don't like the government getting bigger. And I don't like cops killing people. And I don't like foreign interventions. It's like, okay, so you're just a liberal. Like, you're just a liberal. And you think Hitler was a liberal. And that's insane. So that's why I call them low IQ anti-Semites. They don't even know. I tweeted that and they said, wow, he took the check. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm saying you're a bad Hitler enthusiast. I'm saying you don't understand your own lore. So anyway, well, we're going to move on. We'll take a look at the super chats. If these people knew who Hitler was, they would not be posting that. Because these people are all just like disgruntled liberal normies. They're just like Ron Paul heads, Bernie bros, you know, vaguely populist normies that are too online. And they're projecting that ideology onto Hitler and saying, well, he was just a misunderstood guy like me. Not quite. Anyway, let's take a look.
Damn. My man said that he thinks it's good that George Floyd died and it's good that she died. Speaking of Renee Good. Yo, that's rough, man. I don't know what's going on with Nick. Perhaps a lot of people who don't like him will say that this has always been the case. Perhaps it has. But this level of demonic energy, like, it seems like it's just escalating. It seems like Nick took a couple weeks off and just processed things and said, you know what? I'm going to lean into being more of the villain. Y'all remember when LeBron James he came down to Miami, matter of fact, and he leaned into being the villain. Now, it didn't work out for LeBron. You're just a nice guy. But as far as taking on that villain role, but it seems like Nick, and that has absolutely nothing to do with this Nick situation, but it just came to mind, so I shared it. It seems like Nick, he's just chosen, like, you know what? I'll just be the villain. Being the villain works with me appealing to whatever audience and target market I want to appeal to. And it allows me to rationalize these things that I'm not led by principles on. I'm not led by Christianity. I'm not led by Christ-like principles, at least, on. But me embracing this villain role allows me to openly contradict those things so I don't look like a hypocrite. I just look like I don't care. I'd rather look like an asshole than look like a hypocrite almost. Let me say that again. It was good that George Floyd died, and it's good that Renee Good died. That's what Nick Fuentes said on his show. Let me ask y'all this. For the people that still support him, for the people that, and when I say support, for the people that just agree with him, I'm not saying, look, there's certain things that Nick says that I agree with, certain things that I don't. So it's not just about supporting, but for the people that are still on board with his messaging and support that message, I'll say, good for who? How is it good? You're playing God when you say those things. And the reason why I'm saying you're playing God when you say those things, because you're claiming to be a Christian. You're claiming to live by Christ-like values. It's clear in your religion that you say you stand on more than anything, that the commandment is thou shalt not kill. But you're sitting here saying that it was good that George Floyd died and it's good that Renee Good died. Like, it's okay to say, oh, look at the George Floyd situation. I'm not one of these people that embrace the whole victimhood narrative around George Floyd. I actually saw Candace Owens' documentary and saw a lot of these things come out that they never showed us in mainstream media that was happening in the court, with him calling for his mom. No, he wasn't calling for his mom. He called his girlfriend mom, and they showed a previous video with George Floyd in a previous arrest in which that was clearly, he said, call my mama, and it was his girlfriend. But how did the media try to portray it to us? As if he was this black man screaming for his mother, this big black guy, and all he could do was scream for his mother. That's not what it was. They tried to play us no different than when they tried to play us when it came to Trump saying the good people on both sides, and the liberal media outlets tried to say he said that he was referring to the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, and 2 sentences later Trump said, and I'm not referring to the Nazis and white supremacists. They should be condemned at all costs. So when it comes to the George Floyd narrative, I don't believe in everything that they expressed to us. I saw the gentleman that they had that was given I think he was the one that the coroner's report, or he was the one that determined how much drugs, the fentanyl that was in George Floyd's system, saying that, hey, there was enough, I think there was enough fentanyl in the system to like kill a horse or something like that. They exposed the fact that when they got George Floyd out of the car that he was in his drug dealer's car. And that the drug dealer on trial, when they asked him if he was selling drugs, he pleaded to George Floyd, he pleaded the fifth. They exposed the fact that there were fentanyl pills with George Floyd's DNA in the police car, because George Floyd tried to ingest it all instead of getting locked up by the cops or getting in trouble for having the drugs or whatever he decided to do. The drugs were already in his system. They showed that George Floyd was already saying that he couldn't breathe when he was in the police car and asked to get, I think, don't quote me on this one, but I'm almost positive that George Floyd asked to be put on the ground. Now, none of this has to do with Derek Chauvin being an asshole and putting his knee in the back of George Floyd. That was unnecessary. That was cruel. That didn't help the situation. But I'm just saying all this to give context, because context matters when it comes to a situation. And without that context, or I should say, maybe with that context, we wouldn't have had all the uprisings that we did, where a lot of the country was destroyed, where they started putting these dumbass practices like defund the police. How many people do we think that impacted? Defund the police. When you're getting rid of police officers, when you're taking over a police precinct, how many people in that neighborhood could call the police? So I'm just saying all this to give some context for my opinion on this. And it seems like a lot of people, just because they disagree with the narrative around, let's say, George Floyd, do you think that George Floyd, it was still a good thing that he died? You may disagree and can't stand. I can sit here and say Renee Good did something that was stupid as hell what she did. It was dumb. It was idiotic. It was moronish in a lot of ways, driving away from a cop. And perhaps that does show a certain level of privilege that she's grown up with, that from a young age, my pops is teaching me, like, you do what a cop tells you to do. It doesn't matter. If the cop's wrong, you address that later on. You don't address that in the situation. Cop tells you to pull over, you pull over. Cop tells you to do, you do that. The cop has the gun, which ultimately determines, forget law, determines whether you live or not. So I can understand that, but still not sit here and say, yeah, Renee Good deserved to die. Or let me not even say, I didn't even mean to say that. We'll get into that as far as the deserving. Forget, Nick took it a step even beyond that, many steps beyond that. He said it was good that she died. It was good that she died, he said. So we got to start really looking into our souls and understanding, or maybe evaluating is the right way to put it, the type of energy that we're allowing and the type of people that we're allowing ourselves to become. Because a lot of this stuff is demonic behavior. We're pushing a lot of devilish actions and energy out there. And that stuff, look, you put out a certain energy, eventually it's going to come back. Eventually it's going to come back. So I just don't understand how you could sit here and say these things, but I guess that's just what Nick is deciding to lean into. You know, you could say that she's wrong without saying all the other goofy, insensitive stuff. But once again, Nick is performative. Nick is using certain rhetoric. He's already admitted to being performative on his show. We know you're doing it for ratings. You're doing it for ratings. I don't even think Nick actually feels that way. I'm not in his mind, but I don't think a human being can actually feel that way. You can get convinced to get into that crash out mindset where you're thinking like this, but bro, this is soulless. This is soulless. It was good that George Floyd died. It was good that Renee Good died. Like, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? So let me I kind of started at the end because that was, you know, a lot of things that just off the top of my mind, that's what was just going through my head. But let me start with the beginning, and then we'll wrap up with that as we did on the previous show. But let me just go through the notes so I can make sure that I'm hitting on everything and giving y'all the full feedback from the show. So Nick started off by saying that he was surprised with the right's split reaction over the Renee Good situation. And of course, even in the beginning, we already kind of fast forwarded to the end, but he insinuated in the beginning that this was some sort of good thing. And in the end, he made it very clear that he believes it was a good thing. Then he went on to talk briefly about Venezuela, or actually I think he talked briefly about Venezuela. So let me briefly touch on that and then get into everything else. So we'll briefly talk about the Venezuela, and then he mentioned some things with Charlie Kirk. And then we'll move on to getting back to the Renee Good situation. All right, so let's talk about Venezuela very quickly. Now, Nick spoke about this in a previous show, and I think it's funny that this is kind of a side argument off the table when it comes to Nick, but you guys tell me if this has happened in some of your conversations on Venezuela, just in your regular lives, in your day-to-day lives, not necessarily what you're seeing on mainstream media. But I've heard a bunch of my boys and a bunch of friends, they've said like, yeah, you know, people don't even know what's going on in Venezuela. Like, I'm talking to Venezuelans, people who have lived there. And then I always think it's funny how they were using that to justify our actions in going in there, acting as if America is going to Venezuela and getting involved in Venezuela to do good by Venezuelans or to help the Venezuelan people. Like, that doesn't even, Americans, our politicians don't even do stuff to help Americans. And now we think that they're just good, decent human beings that are going to go down to Venezuela and actually do things just for a human rights perspective for the poor Venezuelan people. That's a very naive way of looking at it. But a lot of those people that are justifying it, they're saying that a lot of us are naive because we've never dealt with somebody in Venezuela. We don't know anybody that has lived in Venezuela, all these other things. All that may be true, but doesn't that kind of also give the argument that because we don't know about Venezuela, maybe our politicians who don't even know what's going on in America, maybe they don't know about Venezuela either, so maybe they shouldn't be intervening. You're telling me that I shouldn't even be able to have an opinion because I don't have close ties to Venezuela, but you're okay with American politicians who don't know about Venezuela, who can't even figure out things in America, but you're perfectly fine with them going and intervening in the Venezuelan government, snatching their president out. But, oh yeah, America knows what's best for Venezuela. These American politicians don't even know what's best for Americans, but now they know what's best for Venezuelans. So it's just it's like people back into their thoughts and perspectives on things. It's like, how do I want to feel about this? Okay, let me determine how I want to feel about this, what side I want to be on before I even consume any information. Let me determine what side I want to be on. Then let me back in and then figure out how to connect some dots that rationalize my argument or rationalize my stance. That's what I see that's happening. It's goofy in a lot of ways when you think about it. It's goofy in a lot of ways. But then let's move on to Nick discussing Charlie Kirk. I actually believe that Nick is spot on when it comes to Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, a lot of people, Nick is saying, have been putting out tweets, and I think I saw Tucker say something, maybe a few other people. Charlie Kirk wouldn't have said anything when it comes to Iran, in my opinion. And that's just based on the things that he said privately, like him sending a private message to Trump. I think Tucker was saying opposing getting involved in Iran. Charlie Kirk clearly was one of these people that presented himself in a way that was different than what he actually thought. Like, you don't get points for putting Tucker on stage and telling him to go say what you're not willing to say yourself, but you feel the same type of way. Or you don't get points for having Dave Smith. You're mediating a debate between Dave Smith and Josh Hammer, but behind the scenes, you agree with Dave Smith. But you're sitting here trying to act as if like, no, and there's nothing wrong with mediating a debate. But at no point did Charlie Kirk actually let his true feelings and opinions on these situations be known. So why do we think that now Charlie Kirk would do that? Charlie Kirk always took the back seat and aligned himself with a lot of the things that Trump, he never overstepped and called Trump out, in my opinion. Don't write a letter, bro. If it's important enough for you to write a letter to Trump and tell him not to get involved with Iran, maybe you need to use your influence on a public platform, on a public stage that you do so well when it comes to all these other topics that you're supporting, even though behind the scenes you're actually not supporting them, but you're not willing to call out and voice your opinion on certain things that you disagree with Trump doing. So I'm calling cap when it comes to that. As far as people trying to say what Charlie Kirk would be doing or what Charlie Kirk would be saying. Charlie Kirk, absolutely. Behind the scenes, yeah, definitely. He would be disagreeing with the Iran war. He'd be disagreeing with Venezuela, with any war with Venezuela or regime change in Venezuela, I believe as well. But would he ever let that be known? Would he ever come out in public against President Trump? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe he was getting ready to, and a lot of people will, have certain theories. Maybe he was getting ready to, and that's why they had to get rid of him. Or even if they didn't get rid of him, maybe he was getting ready to, but he didn't. He didn't. He had numerous opportunities to do so. He didn't. It just is what it is. And it's funny. I was sitting here thinking about the conversation between Gavin Newsom and Charlie Kirk. I don't know if y'all saw that podcast that Gavin Newsom did. He hosted Charlie Kirk, and Charlie Kirk was just roasting him. Gavin Newsom's so easy to roast, but he was roasting him, roasting a lot of his policies and calling it out straightforward and direct, as Charlie Kirk is known for. But what he's known for, he's not actually doing. See, in a lot of ways, and this may come across as totally insensitive, and I don't want to ever, call anybody Gavin Newsom. But in a lot of ways, the same way we call out Gavin Newsom for being phony, what was the difference with Charlie Kirk? Like, we didn't know that the difference was we didn't know while Charlie Kirk was alive that he had these differing opinions on Israel. We didn't know that Charlie Kirk, when he was alive, that he felt so strongly maybe as he did when it comes to us getting involved in all these situations outside of America. We didn't know that he had a lot of disagreements with Trump because he never voiced them. So Gavin Newsom, we look at as fake and phony, or we just don't like him because a lot of his policies, I guess we look at Gavin Newsom as fake because he's putting together these policies, but then sitting down with Charlie Kirk and saying, yeah, we got to address the boys and women's sports. Gavin Newsom, you're like the number one person when it comes to pushing all of these strange agendas, whether it's kids can transition in school and they don't have to, and the teachers aren't obligated to tell the parents that their kids are identifying as a different gender, or boys playing in sports against women. But then you get on a podcast with Charlie Kirk and say like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So it's phony from that standpoint, but at least he's so silly. He actually exposed his phoniness. Charlie Kirk never did. But then afterwards, when all these texts come out and whatnot, and we hear what he actually felt about a lot of these situations, he didn't voice them. He didn't voice them. So he doesn't get credit for that. Y'all don't just get to say, oh, he would have stood out. Nah, he may have felt that way, but perhaps he didn't feel it as strongly as you would have, as you feel it, or strongly enough to actually speak out and stand against Trump. So I'm 100% on board when Nick is speaking these things when it comes to Charlie Kirk. All right, let's keep going. And yeah, Charlie Kirk, he made some statements talking about like top down, like he's for bottom up, supporting bottom up uprisings, which is like supporting the people rather than toppling the government. Bro, we all know how this stuff plays out. We all know what's going on in Iran right now. The pretext, all these different reasons that they have to, propaganda that they have to push in order to adjust our mindsets to be on board with all these different regime changes or wars that we want to get in for reasons that, in my opinion, are just violations of principles and either doing Israel's bidding or just trying to take over Venezuela's oil. So what do they do? Oh, you believe in bottom up? So what do? They create a chaotic situation. They feed into these protests like Iran. And now it's like, oh, it's a human rights thing. We have to go support the people. Like, bro, like, knock it off. We understand what's going on. We can see the big picture, I hope. But y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong. I'm always open to being wrong. But let's keep going. So then, all right, so let's get back to the Renee Good situation. We'll focus the rest of the feedback on that. But Nick may not be aware, and I may put up a law or what Homeland Security put out, but Nick is speaking about it from a law standpoint as if this police officer just did the right thing. And they all just assume that the police officer did the right thing. And they all assume that the rest of us will look at that video and take away from it that, oh, that police officer's life was in danger. But you know what Homeland Security says? And what does Nick and a lot of these other people say? Oh, he was dragged down the street. So what? Oh, so he's traumatized. So therefore, maybe he shouldn't walk in front of a car. And also maybe he shouldn't walk in front of a car if a car dragged him, is the fact that it's actually against Homeland Security's rules. It's against their rules. I pulled it up. I'll put it in this video while I'm speaking, and y'all can zoom in and take a look at it. Or maybe I'll just cover my face and just speak in the background, and y'all could just review exactly what Homeland Security put out. But a lot of these people that are supporting or saying that, yeah, the police officer was right, did you actually look at the law? Like, you're just saying, oh, yeah, the vehicle's a weapon, so therefore the cop. First off, if you look at the video, you can clearly see that the cop did not need to shoot her in order to evade the vehicle. And that I think all of the shots, but definitely the shots after the first one, but I think even the first one, the cop was already out of the way. The officer was already out of the way. The officer, and then when you look at the officer's video, a lot of people thought that video was the one that was going to support the officer. No, that video, the angle from the video from the officer actually shows the lady turning her vehicle, not pointing it forward. You clearly see the lady turning her vehicle, trying to evade the officer. And obviously, when you're trying to evade an officer, it says it in the rules as well. You can't just shoot somebody. You can't just shoot somebody that got her foot on the gas. And now what if her foot would have stayed on the gas and instead of rolling into another car would have killed some other kid? Like, it was just reckless and wrong. And now they're coming out talking about the officer has internal bleeding. Like, stop it, bro. Stop it. And the only people that are going to take heed and embrace the bullshit, in my opinion, is bullshit that they're putting out when it comes to a lot of this stuff, are the people that do what I said earlier. They determine what stance they want to have on the issue, and then they back into creating a narrative that supports their view. That's all that we're seeing. Why can't, take the politics out of it. Take you being a fan of this political influencer, take that out of it and just look at the video, and you tell me that you're walking away thinking that police officer was just in shooting her. Now, that's on a basic level. Now, to take it where Nick took it, as far as it was good that Renee Good died, it was good that George Floyd died, bro, there's some demonic energy floating around there. And then Nick went on to say, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Like, bro, do you even understand what that means? That means, like, if you're speeding, don't speed unless you're ready to pay for your speeding ticket. If you steal something from a store, or if you do something, be prepared to face the response or the just punishment for those actions. Somebody who, let's say, is, I don't know, let me give an example. Somebody who's jaywalking. Yes, it's illegal. But if somebody just decides, hey, I hit this person with my car because they were jaywalking, or I shot this person because they were jaywalking, nobody would ever say, hey, you shouldn't have done the crime if you can't do the time. Like, it just doesn't even make sense, bro. Yes, she should have. If she didn't want to pay a ticket for evading the police, or if she didn't want to get arrested for evading the police, or whatever that may be, yes, then you can say that. But getting shot in the head, the punishment is not suitable for the crime that you're referring to. So that logic is just completely mind-blowing, bro. But a lot of people will get on board with it. And that's what happens. We just either maybe Nick heard somebody say this, or he thought that it was cool, or would get his point across. And now a whole bunch of other people are going to run with it. And it's idiotic, bro. It's dumb. It doesn't even make any sense. Don't do the crime if you can't pay the time. She didn't murder anybody. She didn't murder anybody. And Nick is the same person that said when he was talking to Joel Webbin, the pastor, that even when it comes to the death penalty, that he doesn't believe in the death penalty for somebody who actually commits a cold-blooded murder. But now when it comes to this, he's saying, shouldn't do the time. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Like, bro, this is just, it's demonic. It's demonic. Then he goes on to say a tragedy for who? Oh, boo-hoo. It's like, bro, what is driving you to behave in this type of way? Like, are you that angry? Are you that evil to where you felt like maybe evil has been visited upon you to now where you feel like you got to now put it on somebody else? It's almost like you hear that there's always a conversation around like victims like tend to, or like victims are the ones that then prey on other people, right? Like they talk about it with a lot of essays, if you know what I'm referring to, like those type of assaults. Like if you get assaulted, you're more likely to commit an assault. Like I don't know what's going on in Nick's brain. I don't know what's going on in Nick's brain. Maybe y'all can tell me. The people that are still on board and just as far as this argument, the people that agree with what Nick is saying, maybe y'all can inform me on what I'm missing, because clearly I'm missing something, because this just seems straight up demonic to me. Yeah. So let me say, yeah, speaking on someone's death like this, once again, I said it earlier, like it's just soulless. It's just soulless. You're talking about she effed around and found out, and you're in favor of more people effing around and finding out. Like, I'm realizing more and more that our world is just in a sick place. We are just in a soulless, sick place, a demonic place. That's what's happening. We have people that promote Christianity, promote this religion, that religion, promote, claim to be living on Christian, Christ-like principles. It's all BS, bro. It's all BS. These are the people that are putting those quote unquote Christ-like or Christian principles to the side and pushing for demonic behavior more than anybody else. People have been hiding behind religion for thousands of years, committing demonic actions and putting demonic energy out into the world and justifying it whatever way they feel that they need to justify it. That's what we're witnessing right now. That's what we're witnessing right now. But the positive is that people aren't on board with this. Nick may lean into it. You may get this influencer, that influencer to lean into it. You may get this politician to lean into it, but the people aren't really on board with that. I don't think so. You may get a few angry, disaffected people here and there that align with your principles and morals, or limited principles and morals, or confused principles and morals, and that just align with your agenda and are going to support you no matter what. You may have that. You may get more viewership by you pushing this type of rhetoric. You know, you may sit back and say like, yo, the more I lean into the Hitler, like the more views I get. You may be looking into that and seeing that. But see, that's beneficial for you from a personal standpoint. I don't think the people are on board with this. I don't think the people are on board with this. Even a lot of the people that will still sit here and say that, nah, I agree with Nick. I agree with Nick. I don't think that you really do. I think deep down, you know that when you're hearing him say certain things, you like, damn, like that doesn't really align with my moral compass, with my principles and values. You may still support him. You may all these things. Cool. But deep down, you know. Deep down, you know. And if presented with a different alternative that doesn't give off that demonic energy, you may lean that way. Deep down, people know. And I'm glad in a way that things are becoming so demonic right in front of our face, because what it's going to do is it's going to almost be that rock bottom that a lot of people need. We are hitting from a soul standpoint, a rock bottom. And what it's going to do is it's going to allow a bunch of people who may just have previously just been on board with or going along with whatever Nick is pushing, whatever a lot of these other people are pushing, people that would have just kept going on board with that. Nah, they're going to be looking for an alternative. And that's what we're going to be. We're going to be that alternative. We're not pushing for war, overall violence, all that other stuff. It only begets more violence. We're not pushing for, like, even the concept, we've said it plenty of times with war crimes, that concept, it doesn't even make any sense. No, war is the crime. War is the crime. Don't look for me to act like I'm standing on some high horse. Like, who are you to say war is a crime? Nah, I'm just going based on what y'all say that y'all believe in, that Bible. I'm just going based on the golden rule that I adopt, or that I align with, treating others the way that I want to be treated. I don't see any religion that would, I don't see any God. Let me rephrase that. I can see plenty of religions that justify a lot of these demonic actions, but I don't ever see God doing it. I don't see Jesus doing it. What would God do? Oh yeah, God would say that, yeah, Renee Good dying was a good thing. So was George Floyd. That's what God would say, right? That's what we're claiming. I'm just asking y'all. I think it's very clear that we don't think that Jesus wouldn't. But to each their own. I think that people are going to be looking for an alternative. And even when I look through some of the comments, I see things shifting. And even with the views being suppressed or lowered or whatever, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I think that there's a clear line that's being drawn. And Nick and a lot of other people that may be spewing the things that he's spewing when it comes to these topics. I'm not saying that I won't agree with something that Nick says tomorrow, but when it comes to this, I'm addressing this. I think a lot of people like Nick think that he's going to have more people be on his side of that line than actually are. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But what's that Batman quote? We put it on the show earlier today, that it's darkest right before dawn, or dark. Y'all know the whole Batman quote. But things need to get dark for a lot of people to realize that, hey, you got to work just as hard as these people are working to put darkness into the world, to put light into the world as well. So, but let's keep going. Nick mentioned a few other things. He mentioned that he was pleasantly surprised with the Trump administration and supporting the officer, and wants them to turn the temperature up and put more agents on the ground because he's saying they're overwhelmed. Like, even, I don't even know if it's real, the quote that I saw Donald Trump put out, or the post that I saw him put out on Truth Social. Like, it's all just BS. Everything that his administration is spewing when it comes to Renee Good is BS. You look at that video and everybody knows that that officer did not have to shoot Renee Good in order to save his life or save the life of anybody else. He could have just simply stepped out of the way like he did and let her evade and get her at another time. Yeah. Whatever else they would do, right? In a normal traffic stop, somebody evades. And the reason why I say a normal traffic stop, because once the police officer got out of the way safely, even though he was never supposed to be in front of the car, which I'll definitely make sure that I put that post from the Homeland Security website up. But once he got out of the way safely, then it's just a traffic violation at that point. You're evading police or evading law enforcement, whatever it is that you want to say it, address it accordingly to that. And obviously the right thing to do in a situation like that is to not shoot somebody with their foot on the gas. Yeah. So do I have anything else? Let me see. Yeah. Yeah, it's all the same. Like, they're going to justify it however they justify it. Like, if you're sitting here watching that video and saying that she was trying to run over a cop, like knock it off, bro. You can lie to yourself. You can lie amongst your bubble all you want, but there may be a judgment day. I don't know. Christians told me there would be a judgment day, but a lot of these Christians that are the loud ones, and of course I know it's not everybody, but a lot of these loud ones that I don't necessarily hear a lot of the quote unquote good ones addressing, whatever good means, right? A lot of the Christ-like ones. I don't, yeah. Yeah, I don't believe that she was trying to run over the cop. And that's my stance on it. So y'all let me know what y'all think. Let me know where my bias may be coming into play and creating some blind spots. Totally open to that. Cool. Totally open to being wrong. Totally open to being wrong. Maybe wrong, but this is how I'm feeling right now at this point. I think it's very unlikely based on the video that I've seen, but y'all tell me what I may be missing. All right. Appreciate y'all as always. Like. Make sure y'all follow that Black Guy in the Corner page as well, that channel. And let's just continue to build, man. Appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all soon. And turn your notifications on as well, man, because they trying to suppress these views, but it doesn't matter. We're going to put the message out regardless. So on that note, and another thing, yo, I'm looking at the comments and I'm seeing certain people, right, like, yo, they're putting the timestamp and they're saying, yo, the real show starts here. And I'm over here looking for the first couple of times. I'm looking like, yo, that's like the end of the show. Like, that's not even Nick really speaking. And they saying I go to the timestamp, and I'm like, oh, that's where I start talking. I appreciate it, yo. I appreciate the love, man. I appreciate it, and I hope y'all appreciate me. This is just how I genuinely feel. I want us to be able to come together. I want us to be able to figure this out. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be the tree hugging kumbaya all the way to that extreme. But can we just get to a place where we're just moving with a decency of just treating others the way we want to be treated, and not just being so motivated and inspired by hate and fear, but maybe leaning a bit more in the other direction, like just being positive, just living by that golden rule, treating others the way we want to be treated. So with that, I'll leave y'all. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. Make sure that y'all comment. Let me know your thoughts. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Just let me know your thoughts, man. Let's just keep the dialogue going, and I'll see y'all soon. Ew.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all, along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.